nights, or morning, wherever you might be in the world. Satsang, Zoom Satsang at the Headache of the Universal Ashram, and I'm Ramloti, and Jonathan will be here soon. We're just finishing up our evening programs here. So we're happy to have Singh here on his birthday from Australia. And we're happy to have Raghuvir here from Thailand. So with the different timing, it made it more possible to reach out to these gentlemen. And I know it might be harder for some other people, but also on the screen is Jumna and Karku, generally from Thailand, but in the moment in Arizona. So we've been able to have them with us quite a bit lately, a great joy. And our Pujari who woke up 3 o'clock in the morning to be here. So Bole Baba Ki Jai.
Jai, Jai.
Hey.
So everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Clear.
So let's get started. On this special day, Singh, what would you like to share with all these people that are just, some people are newer to Babaji, some people are not. I did post your previous satsangs. Some people may have listened, I'm not sure. So take it away.
I've been pondering in recent times about how much we live our story and how little our story is who we actually are. So we experience this huge range in our life of thoughts and emotions, endless thoughts, emotions up and down, some helpful, some unhelpful. And then we start to believe this story. We start to believe this is who we are. And it is not at all. And Baba taught us to use this mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. And I believe what it really is a passage to know one's own true self. And when we sit with this mantra, we're dedicating some time to our deepest inner self. And I think we all recognize that we become what we focus on. So that's one part. But then we come to why the meditation and why we're not the story. And there's a beautiful word in Sanskrit, soham, which is really, who am I? I am that. So when we sit in meditation and we watch these emotions and thoughts pass across the screen of the mind or as sensations in the body, when we can learn to simply observe them and see that that's not who we are, then the question arises, who am I? Who's watching the screen of the mind? And from that, my experience is the thought comes up, so I'm that. And the thing that seems to cause us the most pain, other than our desires, is our yearning for the divine. And so what is it that we're really yearning for? And it's a yearning, I think, to the end of feelings of separation, which is the great illusion that we're separate from anything. We're not. It's patent. And I see in our family, there are some very great beings who keep this flame alight. Pujari, who has a deep practice. Raghu, who has become our Shastraji, whose endless written inspirations are like glue that holds us together and keeps us close. Sundar in Schwalbenaup in Switzerland, who supports the pujas every day, these beacons of light. Karku and Jamna, who support in Thailand, in Kamalaya. Ramloti, absolutely, in Baka, keeping these flames alight. And Saraswati, who inspired Rifarat in Germany, where the flame burns. And then it led to this contemplation, well, what about all the rest of our family who don't have the time, the inspiration, or the capacity? And then that leads to this inner meditation. And Baba said, take one step and I'll take 9 more for you. And then I thought, well, how is this working? And I thought, well, I believe this only happens when we're in the present moment, when we're really in the present moment, which comes through mindfulness and meditation. Then he can really work with us. Then he can really bring us into his being. And then something from the Buddha. He said, don't believe anything I say. Just if you experience it and it's true for you, goody goody, but it has to be experienced for you. Bole Baba Ki Jai.
Wow, beautiful.
Thank you, Nancy. Raghu, do you have something to add to that or take off from that or something totally different?
Wouldn't dare to take off something from that. Yeah, that's what Nanwa expressed about Soham is also what I experience a lot in these days is that God, Babaji for us, is our self-awareness in the center of our heart. What he also said to us is, I am you. And of course, it's not the you which we know that, which we think that we are. It's not our mind and the whole personality that we generally express to be, but it is our divine essence. And how we give expression to that is also already slightly predetermined, I think. But your yearning, the yearning that we have for reconnecting with that divine is what we do with the mantra and with our actions. And slowly, when we manage to see all the other stuff with the personality as age goes by, I wish I saw these things already 30 years ago like this, but it only comes now that slowly all the other things fall away and we try to give expression to the divine from within without giving it too much of a forced direction. I want this, or I don't want that. And yeah, that is what I'm playing with at the moment inside. That's yeah. Is that okay like that?
What comes up for me when you share that is that what I'm noticing is that space really has been happening when people are here and we're sitting out on a lot these days, having chai and muffins when they come up for darshan. We don't have the whole ashram open yet. And we just sit out there and there's no agenda. It's like we're just all there. And particularly with the children, and they just sort of run up and look at you because they maybe never saw you or they haven't seen you for many years. I don't know. That's where my mind just goes away and I don't know what I'm doing or what's happening other than being there. And time passes by quickly and I'm just in bliss. It's really a lovely experience that I'm having these days. Sure, in the temple and at the fire ceremonies, they're very powerful like that too. But really, with the sweet visitors who are all longing for God in whatever way they're looking. So that's my sense at the moment. And like you said, it's an ever-changing thing. When I think of how I was with Babaji, it's when I was there in his personal presence, I actually shudder about what my story was non seeing in those days. It had, anyways. So I'm happy to be growing up a little bit, maybe into more of this being who I am.
Yeah, that's also for me, Ramloti and Nanavaragu. Like Babaji said, you can only know me through love. And I think that's what we're all expressing, that there's something that we cannot catch with the mind. It's not something personal. It's something beyond. We can feel that as a human being, and it makes us incredibly, it makes us well-being. We feel connected. This sense of separation that Nanwa speaks about, that's so obvious that the pain, our suffering is because we believe in the separation, or the mind believes in the separation, or creates that separation. But as Baba said, you can only know me through love. It's another dimension. Something has to fall in place, and to discover him inside our heart and really believe that that's the only sadhana we have to do. Just drop everything, this personal story, which is, I also think, predestined, like Raghu was saying. We have to go through this learning process on a personal level until we see the illusion of it and slowly reconnect with this obvious field of love, which is more important and relative to our heart than our personal stories. And then slowly we can drop it and experience this love on the lawn with the children. The children, of course, are the great pure examples of that love. So we feel very easy to connect, and there's little separation there. But with grown-ups, we can make very strong stories in our personalities, and that's of course very painful. And beautiful. It's a love story. It's a love affair with Baba, a love affair with God, a love affair with each other. That's what we're living. Happy birthday.
It's a beautiful story. I remember, may I say something?
Yes, Karka.
Sorry for butting in. I remember a story from somebody, a Swiss devotee, but the story was told to me. This is not my personal experience, but it's so powerful, beautiful Baba story of a woman coming to stay with Babaji. I think maybe Raghuvir maybe recited this story to me once, but it really profoundly stuck in my heart. And this rather ordinary, a person who felt themselves to be a very ordinary working person came to Paragon and stayed. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I'm a little far away from the computer.
Yes.
Good.
Okay. And she spent some time with Babaji. I don't remember how long she stayed, 2 weeks or 2 months. And when she was leaving, she said, Babaji, I love you so much. It's been so wonderful to be here. It's just changed my life. I'm a new person. I really want to go home and do something for you. What can I do? Babaji said, be happy. She said, yeah, okay, but Babaji, I really want to do something for you. I really want to do something for you. Give me a job, give me a task. And he said, be happy. And And this went on, this dialogue went on and on and on and on. And Babaji just kept, he only repeated the same thing. And she was getting angrier and angrier and more frustrated because she wasn't getting Babaji to give her what she was seeking, but actually Babaji was letting her know that we can let it all go. We can just accept that he's taking care of us, that we are taken care of. And we can be happy, we can sit in that. And it's really hard. We do it sometimes, and as we get older, Ramloti, yes, as we've been doing this for a longer and longer time, it lasts longer, and we start to feel like maybe we're growing up. Maybe. Because I remember once Babaji said to me, you know, I just want to teach you how to become human. I just want to teach you how to become human. That's what I'm doing, you know. But if you become human, then maybe I'll teach you how to be spiritual. No, and I still feel like I'm trying to become human. I still feel like I'm working at this every day. And I go through my frustrations, and then I forget, and then I get angry, or, you know, anger is one of my issues, and things don't go my way, and sometimes I get frustrated, and then it comes back. And then it comes back that we actually can just rest in this extraordinary love, that we are enveloped in the consciousness and the love of God, Babaji. Yesterday, I had a little experience that we have a rented car, and because our flight is delayed to go back to Thailand, I remembered, oh, we have to extend the rental agreement, and called we were driving, we called, waited, Avis, and we spent hours on the phone, and finally we got a hold of somebody, and we were trying to extend the agreement, and they said to me, no, this car can't be extended. You'll have to go back to the place where you got it, go back to the airport, and they'll give you a new one and extend it there. So I took off and went to the airport, dropped Jamna at home. And somehow the exchange went very fast and very easy. And I left some very important legal documents. We sold a house, we're selling cars, we're in the middle of a million things. I left some documents under the seat of the car. I just forgot. This morning, we were looking for the documents and realized, so 24 hours have passed. We're looking everywhere for the documents. And I call the airport, and I get another computer, and I'm speaking to another robot, and I'm going through all this process of answering the questions. And finally, I just drive back to the airport. It's a huge airport, huge activity. I park at the parking car place, and I walk down 4 flights of stairs, find the place where I dropped off the car the day before. There's cars everywhere, but there's no people. It's the middle of the day. It's lunch. Actually, it was 12:30 in the noon. So it was actually everybody was away for lunch. And I thought, oh shit, there's nobody in the office. There's nobody here. And then I was looking around, so maybe I'll see the car. And there was the car right where I left it yesterday. I mean, how they didn't take it away to clean it and fix it and everything. And there was just nobody around. And I went over and I just walked up to the car, and all the windows were open. I left it closed and locked. All the windows were open. And there were the papers sitting on the floor. Just picked up the papers and walked away. I felt like a spy. I knew Babaji was just carrying me through this process. We always have this moment when we get reminded that we are really, truly taken care of. If we had lost those papers, we would not be going back to Thailand. I mean, it would have been such a huge disaster. I can't tell you.
Massive.
And they were sitting open. They weren't open when I left the car. They were under the seat. But someone had found them, left them on the seat, left the car, and unbelievable. Bole Baba ki jai.
Yeah.
There's something so interesting in all of this, that we're sharing here our thoughts, and we're talking about how through all these years, since it's now, 37 years since Babaji has left us, we're sitting here and bringing it down to very simple, realizing that all the personality and all this stuff is, and the things we do is all, smoke and mirrors, and that really it is God alive in our hearts. But at the same time, we have what Kaku is just telling now, these incredible engaging things going on on the practical level, which are driving you like a roller coaster all of a sudden, and later everything is okay again. But when we 30, 40 years ago, when we were with Babaji, we were all thinking from, wow, we are, particularly shortly after the Samadhi, we are now carrying this thing for Babaji. We're going to bring him out into the world and do all these things. And how simple, actually, through all these years, things have stayed. We were no great yogis, even though we thought that we were. We were just simple human beings trying to realize that God is alive in our heart. And that really is valid for every human being. And there was no high-flying thing. We're going through our motions, and whether it is forget one moment of disattention and we immediately go for 24 hours, or sometimes for months or years, depends on what story we have going. We're going through I don't know what, and then we realize again that God is in our heart. And yeah, that is so beautiful that we have these circles like here where we can share that, so we all have these realizations, particularly that when you are on this roller coaster and you hear this kind of thing, that you know that this roller coaster ride is our life, is the Maya, is the illusion we are going through, and we live it fully, but with the full realization that actually it is about being happy and realizing that God is in our heart.
Yeah,
Always.
Go ahead.
it brings it up, just a second, it brings up my strong memory, how Babaji pointed to me from and said in my eyes, I am responsible for you and your liberation. And it's so difficult to give all that responsibility truly at his feet. No, I want to reclaim that responsibility, and there's no need. That doesn't go anywhere. He is responsible for me and my liberation, and there is no my liberation, obvious, but he is responsible for everything. We can truly let it go. That's such a strong message that he gave in my eyes, telling me I have no faith. If I would have faith, I would have truly give everything to him. Don't worry about a thing and be happy. Yeah.
That was one of the great and most powerful public lessons he gave to you, for all of us. Incredible.
Yeah.
But
Jamna,
if-
you were.
Jamna, did you want to say something?
Yes, all of this stimulates for me the incredible, it often brings me to tears, the remembrance, the being immersed in how Babaji knew each of our natures deeply and profoundly. And according to that, gave us responsibilities, activities, practices, jobs, duties, sitting and being quiet, going and moving mountains, according to our nature and according to our karma. And that he knew that from the moment before we even arrived. I certainly felt that before I even arrived. And how easy it is sometimes in our sense of separation, in our sense that we're the ones by ourselves that are going to liberate ourselves. It's if I do more this, I'm going to be liberated. If I do more japa, if I do more havans, if I read more scriptures, I'm going to be responsible for my liberation because I'm the doer, right? And sometimes looking and it's like, oh, this person's doing X, Y, Z, or this person's really caught in their thing. The reality is we each have been given exactly what is necessary for our soul's path. Babaji gave it to us, and Babaji through life circumstance. And that has been the biggest gift for me through COVID. The fact that we ended up for 8 months completely having an entirely different experience for 8 months, and then came back together and then had a different experience. it has been extraordinary. And one of the deepest, the gratitude is what I'm most in touch with for the last year and a half, 2 years. I mean, overwhelmed with the gratitude, like taken to my knees in tears with the gratitude of Babaji's presence and Babaji's, it's not even wisdom, it's like his all-encompassing knowing embrace for each of our natures. I mean, Karko and I are very different, very, very different.
Just a little bit.
And so it really, I'm confronted with it, you know, it's like, it confronted in the best sense. It's like, it's made obvious and apparent that for me to try to do it his way is not my soul's unfolding. And for him to try to do it my way is not. And that has never been more true than in this time of incredible crisis and change. And that's what comes for me. It's like this resting in the knowing of how well we each have been known, even if we didn't meet Babaji, by the divine consciousness that permeates everything. And that whatever it is, wherever it is, whatever form, that's the path that's going to take us there. We're in a very, very different situation than Pooh in Russia or the new Ramloti, right? It's even though we're doing the work that we're doing, but it's different, the expression, the manifestation. And each of us has been taken to exactly what Babaji would say, I am responsible for your full enlightenment, full realization. And that gratitude is what permeates for me, I mean, more than ever before. I would say that's the feeling of love. It takes the form of gratitude for me now, profoundly. And I'm super grateful to you, Ramloti. I mean, I could just weep right now for what you've started so many years ago when we first met. Remember, I wanted to travel with you on the road and went a little ways with you when you were doing the satsangs and bhajans, early days. You know, you've just been at it and at it and at it with your devotion, with karma yoga, with action, and what you have held up in Baka and Presto. And I have to tell you, and I know it's true for each of us in our ways, but right now, in this moment, thank you immensely for bringing this and bringing us all together, really, from my heart to yours.
Bole Baba Ki Jai.
Yay.
Sometimes I really listen. I mean, I just hear these things. It's like, why don't we? Why don't you? And when I listen, it's like you said, it's a miraculous thing. I just was talking to Raghu. This was way back in January, Raghuvir, and I had even a different experience from talking about to new devotees. I was just so inspired by all the new devotee stories. I wanted to get them all together, and I was talking to Raghu, and then I said, well, why don't we just start? And Raghu was game, and we did that very first one, I think was January 7th or something like that. And so everybody's been just a big help.
Beautiful.
Jonathan and Prem who live here have been, everybody. We're all, yeah, it's a blessing. But I wanted to say that my hardest moment is, so I'm out in the lawn just enjoying, you know, and being with the people in the moment, just loving their beauty and their humanness. And then all of a sudden the pop in my mind is, but what about the newsletter and the agenda to get out for the board meeting and the books and the payroll? That pops in my mind, and that's when my mind goes crazy. So any advice?
I'm with you, honey.
But
I live with that list. You can't
sorry,
imagine. You can imagine.
that was one of the pieces. Sorry, I got so carried away in these other parts, but that was one of the key pieces of what I wanted to share is the illusion of duality. The illusion that resting in that place where the mind is quiet and there's been, you know, this connection and unity, and that then moving into the list of the responsibilities of the fulfillment of the duties and promises, which Babaji was all about with karma yoga, right? We had to fulfill our karmas also, our responsibilities. And perhaps that's one of the other things, is less of a split in myself in that duality, more and more the coming together, less of that switching completely, bringing them more together. I suppose the biggest example for me of witnessing and experiencing that was Muniraji, which we talked about last time, where he united both. He didn't see them as separate. They were integrated in him. And I aspire and am inspired by that example. I don't believe Babaji taught us that it's either or. Very few people were to be out of the world without the responsibilities and the karmas of being incarnate at this time. That's so funny you brought that up, because that was one of the things that actually had been stimulated for me is moving more into that and how to do that more.
Thank you.
I think we spend so much of our waking time either living in the past in our mind or concern or fantasy about the future. And yet we know that the only place we can possibly be is in the present moment. There isn't anywhere else we can possibly be. And I believe that a big part of spiritual practice is to train us to be more and more in the present moment. We can't stop the mind. They say that Zen monks who've been meditating 15 hours a day for 50 years, their minds still go, but they come back to the present moment very quickly. They realize that they've gone down the rabbit hole very quickly. Early morning for a drink, mate.
It's your birthday.
Exactly, we're all celebrating.
As many of us have now been in this body on this planet for a fair while, we realize that the vicissitudes of life, the ups and downs of life, are not going to go away. It's part of the human condition. And if we hang on to his feet, which I believe is being in the present moment with a heart of love, then instead of being blown about like a little boat on the stormy ocean, the path, it's smoother. It's smoother because we come back into the present moment more easily if we're doing it again and again and again and again and again. And I saw something written recently and it said, don't ask what if. You know, when we're what if, it's like we're off down the rabbit hole again. Focus on what is.
Yes.
Jay.
Yeah, there's a certain point when you have gone so many times up and down, you start to take that whole thing, what is happening in your mind, less serious. I've had moments where I was really busy with a lot of japa or meditation and stuff like that, and you can actually feel that your mind, when it starts to get into a lot of thoughts, that it actually cramps, that it contracts, and that it becomes sort of uncomfortable versus that other peaceful feeling when you're in harmony doing with your mantra and or in a quiet moment. And then the mind contracts because all of a sudden there is stuff going on. And it becomes really relative when you go into it a few times. It's something which happens totally involuntarily. You can't control it, as you said. That can give it somehow less importance. And as soon as you catch it, that it's actually going on. And even that sometimes doesn't work, but still, at a certain point it will. I'm sure you were telling yourself, Karko, a few things until the moment that you really got the papers in your hand again. That's
What if?
Yeah.
No question.
Either that or Babaji, please help
We were
guide,
praying.
protect. We were actually more in communion rather than what if. We were petitioning humbly, but very sincerely for help and support.
It's part of our humanness. Yeah.
Thank God for that. I remember one teacher talking about the horror of trying to be good. It really, I was like, the horror of trying to be good. I really had to contemplate that one, and then it hit me. And I'll leave you with that. I won't explain what it meant for me, but it really was freeing. Thank God for our humanness. Because when we're trying, we're not in a good place. Like a koan.
Yeah, it's fate, 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 fate.
What I wanted to share was you brought up these tours that I used to do, and well, I've done them for years and years, but just this idea of the miraculous ways things just pop in. I mean, and so many people here, have heard their inspiration. In 81, 82, Babaji gave a speech. He said, now I want you all to go out and publish things in the newspaper and go on radio, maybe he said TV, I don't remember, and tell people about my message of truth, simplicity, and love. And I was sitting there listening, and I thought, that sounds scary. I'd never been on TV, but I had been doing slideshows at my son's kindergarten class to try to get volunteers to help with the class. And I thought, I could do slideshows. That would be okay. Room's dark, you're just talking. I could even have a little script if I needed, and you're pressing these slides of Babaji and what life is like in Harakan. So I thought that to myself, and then I had no film left. And so I asked, somebody said, Haldvani in 1981, you weren't going to find film anywhere. But somebody said, ask Babaji, he has it. So I went to Babaji very courageously, and I said, Babaji, may I have some film? And he said, oh, yes, Ramloti. And he handed me 2 rolls of slide film, not regular film, but slide film. And it was just that kind of synchronicity. And all through these years of having, slideshows and videoing people, just people popped up to help. Yeah, I can go on one. Jamna said, yeah, I can go on one. Pujari's been on them with me before. And different people just, I don't know. And I guess the point is that these little hints are here and there. And when they're, really coming from that inspirational point, then everything seems to come into place. Not always easily, but comes into place to support it, just like many of you can share about building ashrams, building centers, building Kamalaya, and many people in the audience as well. So.
We are all, each and every one of us, connecting in the best ways that we can. That's what we do, all of us. Every person on the screen, in the audience. I mean, we're all just doing our best. We just get up every day and do it again.
Can I say something, Ramaloti?
Yeah, I wanted to just open it up to the gallery. Do we have a picture of you, or just, okay, go ahead, German.
Well, it just, Babaji used to always say to me so many times, you're so simple. And we often love truth, simplicity, and service. Sometimes we just forget the simplicity so much. That, he told us over and over again, you happy, I happy. And someone earlier was saying how he just wants us to be happy. I think Don Singh. And so often times during the day, if I'm going through a difficult work, a situation, I just start to laugh and say, "Are you happy?" So everything, even stuff that is maybe some would think is unpleasant, it all becomes kind of one. You don't. I mean, the yogis have always talked about the difference between pleasure and pain is not so significant. And I think if we're just simple and happy, then it all just comes, and you deal with what comes, and then something else comes. So I think the simplicity of, I mean, Babaji was so amazingly happy for us. When we're happy, he really was happy, like you can see it we just have all seen it so many times. If we're just ourselves and happy, the world is right. It's simple.
So beautiful.
And we, being human beings or Homo sapiens, try to make it difficult.
We do, don't we?
Yeah.
Great to hear you here, Aman.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
Where's your face?
My face? I don't know. Am I better now?
We don't have a picture of you.
Oh, well, I'm going to get my laptop figured up as soon as the office is open, but I've got to wait for Claire to finish a client.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Wow. It's great to hear you. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Our minds are developed to keep us safe, and we still hold genetically huge amounts of, the fight and flight from when we were on the savannah in Africa or something. And the mind is really, really good at that, the physical keeping us safe, but it's not so good at psychologically keeping us well. It's a different thing. And it's I think, to let go of the mind, only take notice of it when it's useful, when the thoughts are useful. The rest of the time, let it pass, let it pass. Hey, Hiraman.
Yeah,
I just figured it out. The start video button. I'm so simple, I can't figure out a phone.
The phones are smart nowadays, so it's difficult.
And if anybody else in the,
Gillian has her hand raised, I see.
okay, go ahead.
Nice to meet you, Pujari. I liked love the Satsangs when you've been present. I'm fascinated by, because I'm so new to Babaji, that a lot of synchronicity of events that come in when you came to him. And, it's funny that I've had about 2 or 3 gurus give me the mantra Om Namah Shivaya. I got it from Siddha Yoga, I got it from Swami Satchananda, I got it from somewhere else. And I just, just that simple little thing, that connection. And in 2019, January 2019, when I didn't like him very much, I used to see pictures of him come up on my Facebook screen. I go, oh. There was another Babaji I didn't like and still don't like, but that's a long story. And this friend of mine decided to put a link in my private message, and it was called the Lilas of Babaji or something like that. And I got fascinated. And then I heard that lovely kirtan, forgot the name of it, and it just beautiful. And then it's the journey started, the heart started opening. I haven't had any great mystical experience. I'm too simple for that.
Thank you, Gillian, excuse me. It's nice to have you here. I'm very excited that we have so many Australians here tonight with us. Or this morning, excuse me, for you folks.
Well, we're not allowed to go anywhere, so we might as well be here.
Are you locked down again?
Well, the borders of the country are closed. In the last 18 months, they only let 20,000 people out of the country.
Yeah.
So, and yes, there's lockdowns in some cities and
And
states.
City, Melbourne and Sydney as well. But Brisbane might be opening up. They've done a good job.
The time of somebody in Ireland was emailing me this morning and enjoys our satsangs. He said mostly the timing doesn't work with his work things, but he said that he had a dream about Babaji. I think I got it right, the right person, 10 years ago. And in the dream, Babaji was saying, "You will be wearing a mask soon." And this gentleman asked him when, and Babaji said, "Very soon." So he found that to be very interesting.
Yeah, wow. That's like, just give me a sign. Wow, that's powerful, amazing.
And it's beautiful how many people around the world are just having so many visions and dreams of Babaji. I'm quite jealous, to tell you the truth. Like, I don't get any dreams.
You have to take the time to sleep to get a dream, Ramaloti.
What did you say, Herman?
You have to take enough time to sleep to get a dream.
My dreams are being with you folks every week. Somebody else said, "Well, why don't you take a break? You know, it's been a lot of work getting these satsangs together." I said, "Because it's my time. It's sort of my time in Harakan in India, which I haven't been able to go for a few years, being together with all of you folks, everybody. It's a real blessing." So do we have any questions from other folks? Or a comment, a story? Go ahead. Martin.
Yeah.
Martin, where are you?
Yeah. Om Namah Shivaya. I'm calling from Wellington in New Zealand.
Wow.
New Zealand.
Hello, New Zealand.
Yeah. Holy Baba Ki Jai, everybody. I just wanted to say thank you very much for changing the time to this time, because it's much easier for me to join, like in live. I usually listen to the broadcast, after you posted, because it's 4 o'clock in the morning in New Zealand, the usual time. And today is 12 o'clock lunchtime. And I'm very, very grateful for the service, for your seva, because it is the only exchange I have with other Babaji devotees. I have, I don't know, maybe there are other Babaji devotees around. And I used to live in Auckland, up north in Auckland. There used to be a group of devotees, but I think they disbanded pretty much after Muniraji. Kaku, you will remember, Muniraji came just once to New Zealand.
I remember Raghu and Pujari, all three of us were there. I remember very well.
Yes, I remember. And I think Dr. Lal, was there.
Yes, Dr. Lal came, and Sastraji and Muniraji. Yes.
Sastraji, did he? I don't think Sastraji came.
Yeah, he definitely came.
Did he come? Okay. I remember Muniraji, of course, yeah. So that at that time, that was early 90s, 91, I think.
91.
Easter 91.
Yeah.
Easter 91. So that was very nice. But first of all, I left Auckland, and also the group, I think, disbanded pretty much after that. It was just, I think, clashes of personality or whatnot. And when I came back to New Zealand, I settled in Wellington, and I haven't found any other Babaji devotees, which is, it's not a big thing, because I carry Babaji inside. I feel I have a strong connection, but I appreciate, with the satsang with other with other people, like direct satsang, is really nice. So thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Martin. And we'll try to do a few in the evening like this.
Thank you.
Like I said, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, to agree with you that when we're back in Thailand, we can do more in that time. It's wonderful.
Exactly. I do too. It's like I said, it's a little sad not to see all our friends from Ukraine and from Luxembourg and France and all these places, but we can always shift around. and get everybody confused. I see all the people that get on the Zoom call through the day on my email. And I would say about 15 people got on at all different hours. So people they do get confused, but such is life. We'll do it. I actually have a great desire to do one with the focus of the fire ceremony. And for that, I really, would like all of you folks to be on it that are here tonight, and we'll see how other people can be on too. So.
I think it would be a way forward into the future with these satsangs, that we take certain topics. Otherwise, we are sitting here in silence and sharing a few deep things, but maybe to give a little bit of structure, that one day we talk about fire and another day about mindfulness, or about certain things that together we can deepen somehow.
Yeah. Last week was very much about arti, and that was very beautiful. And the other thing I mentioned was to have one like we did about Muniraj, about Sastraji and stories of Sastraji. I'm trying to figure out his birthday, but nobody knows so far. So if anybody knows his birthday, that would be great, because it'd be fun to do it near his birthday, but it doesn't matter really.
Not so difficult if we ask Chandradev, for sure he knows. By now we have mostly forgotten, but Chandradev will surely. Do you have his email contact? Or?
Sharda has reached out to Bhupendra and Sheila and Pinky. So, and we would get some of them on too. So anyway, but for the moment, does anyone have any questions or comments that they would like to add? Martin?
Yeah, I have one question to the birthday child, Singh. I would like to hear about your story, how it started. How did your journey start? How did you meet Babaji?
Okay, I'll tell the story as briefly as I can. I grew up in a very wealthy family with a lot of privilege. And when I was 18 or 19, the family lost all their money, everything completely. And I lived on the streets. And in my teenage years, my brother died, my mother had a nervous breakdown, my parents separated, I was sent to a boarding school where I was sexually abused, I was bullied unmercifully. Everything that I'd grown up to believe was supportive and truthful was ripped away, every single thing. And I was left broken, and I took a lot of drugs. And then I started to meet people who'd been living in India, young Westerners who'd been living in India, for want of a better expression, seeking the divine. And somehow it just caught me, and I walked into somebody's house and there was this huge poster of Shiva on the wall. And I was like, I recognized it. It was like something lit up inside, inexplicable. So I took a one-way ticket to India. I had 70 pounds. And 6 days later, I was meditating in the cave at Amarnath. I walked there in my cowboy boots. And then I went to Varanasi from there because I wanted to bathe in the Ganga. And there, through a miracle, I bumped into an old friend that I'd lived in a tent with. And he'd just rented a house on the Ganges. And so we'd sit there and smoke chillums in the morning and watch the bodies float past. And then I hitchhiked. I got a call from a girlfriend and I hitchhiked back to England. So the next place I was going to go to was Almora. Anyway, a year later, I'm back in India, and the girlfriend didn't work out so well. And I was living in Almora, and I was spending a lot of time with Sunyata Baba, who was a great Danish saint who went to India as Rabindranath Tagore's gardener. And I'd learned to do the havan, in a copper Dooney, so I was doing that every morning. And then I met Tara Devi, Mary Oplica. She was Baba's first Western devotee. She'd been living in India since 1953. And she had the most amazing relationship with Baba. She was a deep devotee, but she was also like a mum. It was unbelievable. Nobody spoke to him like she did. And one day she said to me, she was in Baba's kutia, and she saw a mala hanging up, and she said, Babaji, what do you do with a mala? And he said, I do jap. And she said, can you believe it? It's like Einstein doing the 2 times table. So anyway, she would talk to me about Babaji, and I was in a tea shop, and unknowingly I sat underneath Baba's picture every day. And then Ananda Mai Ma came to town, and I went to have her darshan. And I wondered if maybe she was my guru. I was looking everywhere for a guru to take away my doubts and fears and pain and loss. And while I was sitting having silent darshan, my whole body became empty, and she spoke inside me. I was asking her to take all this fear and pain and doubt away, and her voice, I looked up, she was looking straight at me, and inside she said, first you have to love me. And I think she pulled the trigger and shot me out of the gun, because 48 hours later I was in Herakan. And I had $2 left, no ticket, the clothes I stood up in. And I went with another guy that I'd met on the road. And Baba came in the evening. Well, the first person I met was Kaku. He was taking his bath. I got there in the afternoon, and there he is taking his bath in the river. And he asked me where I came from. You know, I think he meant England or wherever it was. But I said, oh, Almora. And then he said, I've never forgotten it, Kaku. It's embedded with love in my mind. He said, man, you're going to love it here.
That was 1977.
Yep. And so Baba came in the evening. I took a bath and I made my pranam, and he said, you sleep here tonight and tomorrow you go. And well, I thought I'd go and jump off the cliff outside Baba's kutia. I thought if he doesn't want me, then there's nothing left, because somehow that just arose. And as soon as I had that thought, he said, no, no, you're good man, you stay. And then one day I asked him how long I should stay. He said, always. You always stay. And somebody asked me once what I learned, and I couldn't answer, but I said what he took away was all the fear and doubt and pain, and he filled it with love.
Nanwa.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Nanwa, you've shared that story so many times, but I've never heard it like you shared it today.
Yeah, beautiful.
Really. But I have to ask you something. I have to ask you something, because this is something really, what you've just shared is so unbelievably precious. But also, you have something also that every new devotee, everyone who didn't meet Babaji should really hear. And that's how your children got their names.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had incredible experiences together in the early days with Baba. And me.
I saw that picture on Facebook the other day, Kaku, of Baba standing in the garden. It's black and white with his hand in blessing. He's dressed in white, and in the background is the mud brick tea shop,
yeah,
where we lived upstairs.
Yeah.
And I cut boils out of your ass with a Swiss Army knife. Anyway.
Jamna will want to hear about. Jamna will want to hear about that. We're talking about boils today.
So a year or so after I left Herakan in 1980, we were blessed with twin sons, and so I took their photos on the day they were born, put them in an envelope and sent them immediately to Baba and said, Baba, would you please name these children? Well, my father, I was in Australia by that time. My father was in England, and he was quite a difficult upper sort of class old man. And he wrote me this letter that said, now you'll find that life is in grim and earnest, and your woolly Indian philosophies will come to nothing. Oh, and by the way, if you give the children Indian names, I shall never speak to you again. And I'm like, shit. Whoops. The photos have gone to India. So some weeks later, the photos came back from India, and on the back was written the boys' names, Herbert and Martin. And as far as I'm aware, they're the only children Baba gave English names to.
Unbelievable.
It's amazing because all those Indians wanted to get Western names, but Babaji just left them with their old Indian names.
That's amazing, beautiful.
It's such a precious story that because
beautiful.
Babaji just knows that when you're connected with the divine knows everything. And therefore, the divine can be responsible for us, huh, Pujari?
And I looked at them at the dinner table last night, you know, and they haven't been to India, but there's no question they're part of Baba's family. You know, I see them sitting there with, I said to one of my sons, my silver Om Namah Shivaya bracelet broken. I bought the cheaper one on eBay. And I said, he said, you always have it on. I said, yeah, you know, I always have it on. And he said, well, I have them on both wrists.
Nice.
I said, oh, does it remind you? Yeah, it reminds me. So. Bole Baba ki jai.
Yeah.
Thank you for indulging the story. I didn't mean it to be so long.
Beautiful.
Maybe I did.
Raghu, how did your children get their names? They're not English.
No, but my kids were born after Babaji's Samadhi.
Ah.
But actually, when we were traveling in Jadar, Babaji was on a tour in November, December in '83. And in that tour, Kako and I were, well, I don't know if it was a real initiation, but we were told not to put our clothes on anymore. And we traveled around with Babaji in Langotis. And then in a particular place where we had maybe some of the best days of our life, in Jadar, we got, Babaji gave us names. Extraordinary names with titles. He made us both an acharya. I mean, doesn't make any sense because you have to do some hard studies from 5 o'clock in the morning for many hours a day for 13 years to become an acharya. And he was calling us acharya and a few other things. And my full name there, which he gave me, was Swami Vijay Raghuvanant Acharya. Now, it was all fun because every interaction we had with Babaji was beautiful. And but of course, we were never saying from hello, my name is Raghuvir, Swami Vijay. It was just a nice thing which somehow you put into the shelf of. We didn't use that. We didn't think about it even much. At least I didn't, and I never heard Karko also much about it. So I think it was just much of the. When my daughter was born in September '84 in Chilianola, it was just before Navaratri, and Sastri and Muniraj were present, and after 9 days of the birth, that was just before the Navaratri, Shastriji Muniraj were there. There was a name-giving ceremony, which a Pandit did for many hours. And then towards the end, Shastriji and Muniraj came and did the last part of the ceremony. And then there was the actual name giving, which I let completely up to them. The first Pandit gives some name, but then the actual name, what they're going to be called, would be given by them. And they put it like it's a piece of cloth, but they put it into the ear of the baby like that. And Shastriji said, Bimla. And Muniraji said, no. And he put it into the ear of my daughter and he said, Vijaya. And it was, it was just an Indian name. And you, whatever importance you give to it, you start to translate, and now Vijaya is Victoria and this and that. But I mean, that is all mental stuff. But we went through time, and then almost 2 years later, less than 2 years later, my son was born, but he was born in Italy in a hospital because he came a little bit unexpected. And when after everything was good and we wanted to leave the hospital within 2 days, but they were not allowing us to leave the hospital because in Italy it's a law that you give the name, you have to give the name of the baby. I said, oh, but we don't do that like that. We wait till 9 days. And I wanted to get the influence of Muniraji through ceremony to do the name giving. And they said, no, you can't leave. But it was a private hospital, so that's a lot of money in Milano. So I thought, okay, well then, and I took the name of my father and the name of Katari, my wife's father. And we said, well, we made them happy, and I thought later we will see how it works. But you are at home, and for me, I have the same name as my father, but I never had any romance with that name so much. And neither did Qatar with that name, George, Alberto George. It was not really. So I started playing with it, and I thinking of the Raghu. My name is Raghuvir. I was in case you don't know, but that I was playing with it because Raghu is actually a whole dynasty in the Ramayana, and of the different names which exist there, one of them is Raghunandan, which means the bliss of Raghu. And I thought, oh yeah, he is my bliss. So I started to play with it. That I called him Raghunandan, but he was just born, so it didn't really. Then some months later, Muniraj and Shastriji came to Europe, and I was there to present my son to them, and I said, this is my son, and I would like if we can have a moment to give him a name. I said, oh yeah, what is the name? I said, well, like this, the same story of the hospital, etc. And so far, I've been calling him, jokingly, I said, I've been calling him Raghunandan. And they said, born in May. Yeah, that's perfect. That's really, we're not going to change it. I said, no, it's not because of me. It doesn't matter. But I would like that you do a proper ceremony and that you give it according to. He said, no, it's perfect. This is correct. I thought that they were just being gentle because I brought that name. And only then afterwards I realized people who are born in this month, I forgot the Indian name of that month, they get a name starting with Ra. And it is actually, he would have gotten a name like something with starting with an I. It could have been Rajat or something else, but it was that. And only then, when I started to really think about that, that name came back from Swami Vijay Raghunanthacharya. And then tears did fall that he was already there at that time, because I'm no Swami or anything. I like to wear these kind of pink clothes, but I'm definitely not a Swami, and I'm also not an Acharya. But it was very touching that Babaji was already there and he was already putting out the red carpet. Yeah. Yeah, he's always there in the past, in the present mostly. He's already there in the future also.
It's all knowing. It's beyond. It's all knowing. Jamna.
On names. When I was there with Babaji, he gave me different nicknames for a period of time until my sister arrived, and my mother arrived first, and then my sister arrived. And then at one moment in front of Gora Devi, he gave me my name, Jamna, and he gave my sister, younger to me and more fair-skinned, Ganga. And then he said, and your other sister, Yamuna. This was in front of my mother. And Gora Devi said, do you have another daughter? To my mother. And my mother said, yes, but she's not here. And then Gora Devi turned to Babaji and said, but Babaji, Jamna and Yamna is the same. And he said, no, Yamna. And she said, oh, you mean the Saraswati? He said, no, the underground river, Yamuna, associated with Yam. Got it there. And invisible, underground. So my youngest sister, Rita, never met Babaji in person. He knew she would be the invisible one. She never did come. And she has a connection to death. She often has had premonitory dreams of people passing away, before they pass away or as they pass away. And he knew that. He knew that in her nature. He knew that and named her. And then he played a Leela, which I won't go into, but about names, that was quite extraordinary. And for her to receive a name, never having met him, even now in person, but feeling very connected to him.
Karko, I wanted to ask you how you felt when Babaji gave you to the title of a Acharya and some special name. Do you remember that instant and what went through you when he was calling you that?
At the time that it happened, like Raghu said, it was, it felt extraordinary. Of course, I don't think Raghu or I felt like we were acharyas or anything, but it was beautiful and it was wonderful to receive that name. And Babaji made me, I remember that Babaji gave me the name, and there's some humor in this, Swami 107, Karko Acharya Hridayakandi Saraswati. 107. I always thought, oh, that's aspirational. It's because I'm trying so hard. That's what got stuck in my head. You know, that's what got stuck in my heart. But Babaji made me write it down. And when Babaji was teaching me to do the Havan, he was teaching me the importance of the sankalp, the saying, setting the intention when you do rituals, always setting the intention. And he said, every time, every day when you pray, when you wake up and pray, you recite your name to God. So I recite my name every morning to God, but I don't use it otherwise. I just cartwheel now. You'll always state yourself before God. So
That Swami name you do every morning?
whenever I pray, whenever I pray, but certainly every morning, I recite it. You know, when I'm as part of the as part of my sankalp of invoking. Babaji taught me how to invoke him, how to, and then you know, there's all the same puja mantras that we use when we're doing the temple, or if we do the beginning when we do the Havan. Then you also state who you are. I'm here. I'm praying to you. Thank you for all the blessings you gave me. Thank you for my life, and thank you for everything. Please keep me always surrendered to you, and please show me reality as it is. It's every morning. Please, please, please.
Yeah, beautiful. Shall I share my part of my name story again that was uplifted at one point? What happened in Kedarnath is a very beautiful moment in my life. Being with Baba and many of his devotees in Kedarnath. There was one moment I was sitting with Raghuvir in the chai shop there somewhere, and Baba was giving darshan in a hall there. And then he needed me as a pujari. He said, because there were pujas to be done to Baba, and he said, where is my pujari? Where is my pujari? Everybody go look for pujari. So people came running up to us, sitting in the chai shop. Pujari, Babaji is calling you, Babaji is calling you. So I had to run over to the hall where Babaji was seated. Where are you? Every morning, every evening, you have to do puja to me. That was like my duty, his message. So from that moment, everybody knew me as, oh, there's Pujari. That was almost a name-giving ceremony from, I had to live my life with that job and that name. And I tell, that was a beautiful, strong moment, because I had to crawl in the Indian crowds with my plate of whatever prasad, lamps, and I had to learn what is a janeu and a chuni and do the ritual correctly. Of course, Muniraji on my side, who's without him, I would not be able to get it in shape, but through his help, I was able to manifest also that and walk through the crowds with my puja plates and things on journeys like that. But once later in Hirakan, Baba was lying on the wall close to his kutir up there, where he was like a beautiful animal almost, lying so relaxed on the wall. And I was standing close to him, and he called me closer to him and said, what is your name? Very, in his sweet voice, what is your name? And I, Pujari. No, he kind of without words nodded. No, that was, and so I started to give my Dutch name and my middle name and my last name and my nickname, and until I had no more names. But after 5, 6 names, he just looked at me and I blanked. I just stared in his eyes and he in my eyes, and then he nodded, and then I got it. There is no name. Ultimately, you are nobody. There is nothing. There's nothing really there, except this moment, this presence of what you really are, and that made it clear to me. The name is an illusion. It's a job, kind of. It for me. He made it clear. You just do puja to him morning and evening. That's what I'm doing. Even if it's just an incense of putting a flower, I'm doing puja to him every morning, every evening, and I know I'm nobody. And it's also not necessary to be somebody. at the same time, yes, we can have a no, lovely to be Sandro, because what do I call this beautiful man, no? If we wouldn't have the name Sandro. But it's, yeah, it's like that. It's ultimately, we are nobodies. And at the same time, we have a name, beautiful. And I know Jamna has something similar, I believe, that he took your name away. I've never heard you tell it, but it's, now I told my story
I'll tell it.
again. Yeah.
Yeah. You made me just remember, because when Raghu was sharing about, his children and that just beautiful story about how they got their names, it then popped in my head about my sister who never met him and got a name, and it was so exact. He didn't take my name away, Pooh, but he did a similar thing to you with a different outcome. From when I first arrived with Babaji, I don't know if this was true or not, but it was explained to me. Some people got chandan like this, some people got chandan like this. And in the beginning, he would give me chandan like this. And the devotees, I don't know if they were the Indian, I don't know if it was Gaura Devi, I don't know who said, oh, this is Vishnu and this is Shiva. So I'm going to recount it not as someone who is the expert, just as my experience as it happened. So I was told that this was Vishnu and this was Shiva chandan. So I was like, oh. And it went on. And then after some time, I don't know how much time, he changed to this type of chandan. But it caught my attention and it stayed in my mind that there must be a connection to Vishnu for him to have done the chandan like that for quite some time, not just for a few days. I was a total of 6 months with Babaji. Then he named me and he called me Jamna for quite some time. And then I went away for 2 months. I was in the Philippines and then I came back. So it was 3 months and 3 months. And on my return, Navaratri had just ended and the ashram was, there weren't a lot of people left. There were still some people left, but the majority had left and fewer dwindled off. And at a certain time after the Navaratri, within maybe 10 days of the Navaratri, he started calling me Jamna Devi. And I heard it, and my initial birth name from my father that I was called my whole life was Devi, but Devi like English Devi. And from the age of 2, I had wanted to change my name. I did not resonate with Devi. I grew up in Mexico. I look Latina, and I had this name that to me, even as a 2-year-old, felt foreign. It has always felt like a blonde, blue-eyed cheerleader personality. And so all of a sudden, Babaji's calling me Jamna Devi. And it's bringing up all these mixed feelings. Mixed feelings because of the associations of trying to reject that from the age of 2. And then of course, being long enough in India that I knew the meaning in India, and it was like a jumble. And then one day, just like with you, Pooh, he called me over. It was in his balcony, and he had me sit close, and he said, very sweet, in that voice that just melted me. What's your name? And he'd been calling me, Jamna. I said, Jamna.
What?
No, Jamna Devi. I was crying because it was shocking. And then he said it more softly, your name, Jamna Devi. Of course, I don't use it, Jamna, it's perfectly fine, but it was so poignant. The next day, for 3 days, he gave me a Devi Chandan. And I wouldn't have known, except that Gaura Devi, my beloved, really, I adored Gaura Devi and great teacher to me, said, who gave you that Chandan? And I said, Babaji. And she said, that's the Devi Chandan. And he did it for 3 days. For me, what he showed me is I'm a devotee of the mother. Truly, that's the form of the divine that is closest to my being. And yes, Shiva, yes, Radha Krishna, I adore the Krishna play, but I belong to the mother. And so that was, your story reminded me of that experience. He didn't take it away, but he didn't let me do what I had done with my name from childhood, is try to push it away. He made sure I understood the teaching. And hence the connection to Bhakta and Crestone and the work and devotion you have there, Ramgoti. To me, it's very meaningful, very precious.
I laughed because my name was Debbie too. And I was blonde.
Maybe it
Cheerleader.
suits you. Maybe it suits you. I used to come home at 2 with, I would say, no, my name's not Debbie. My name is, you know, Carolina, Maria, Rosa, all these Spanish sounding names. I just couldn't wear it.
And then you sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah.
And then you became Babaji's cheerleader.
Oh.
But he also knew my name. I mean, when I met him, he said, "What is your name?" The first day I met him. And I said, "Deborah," because I'd been Debbie my whole life and I was just changing to Deborah. I thought it was more adult. And I said, "Deborah." He said, "No, you Debbie." Same thing, you know, sort of the V thing. And I thought, oh my gosh. And then he said, "No, you Ramloti." So that's my Debbie story, but I cracked up when you said blonde cheerleader.
And just that little piece, because when I first met him was in Delhi. He had come from Calcutta, and I don't know whose house we were in, but there were easily 300-400 people in the garden, and he was there. And I arrived when people were already chanting and gathering, and I was terrified to walk up and greet him. I had already met him in the morning with fewer people. I just couldn't face going up there. So I sat in a corner, and he really made a point of calling me up. And I tried to hide, like I kept shrinking and like pretending it wasn't me. And the Indian women just kind of forced me to go up. And to our first real encounter, he said, "What's your name?" Very, "What's your name?" And I said, "Debbie." And he said, "Debbie, Debbie." He repeated it 3 times. And he said, "Beautiful name. Who gave you this name?" And I said, "My father." He said it so sweetly that it just melted my heart towards my father for giving me that name, an acceptance of a part of me that I had rejected. At that point, I didn't know the meaning. It was like with you, you know, he was playing with the way we wear the name, the discomfort, and he brought immense acceptance in that moment. And I didn't know anything yet about the name. So, amazing, huh, Ramloti, to have such a similarity there.
My grandfather gave me that name. He wanted Deborah. And we always called him Baba. That was what we called him. But the other thing I loved finding out, the Jewish tradition, apparently the translation of Deborah or Deborah is little b, little b. And so then reading the Saptasati where it says, talking about Mahendra Baba, "You hum like a heavenly bee around the lotus feet of the great master." I thought, that's a good name. I want to hum around like a little bee around Baba and Mother all the time. So anyways, enough about these.
The first name Baba gave me was not Nansing. The first name he gave me was Fakir Singh. And I'd been living in the mountains above Almora with a big, I used to walk around with a big spear and a longi. And I'd never been to Australia at that point. And I thank every day that he changed it to Nansing, because I can imagine what Australians would make of Fakir Singh.
I think the thing with the names is that thing that Raghuvir you shared so beautifully, is that he knew even before we were thinking anything about, he already knew. Again and again, we have the stories of his omniscience, the absolute all-knowing. And we just wake up to it later down the road, like, wow. And it's so overwhelming. You know, and
Yeah.
Bonnie, did you have
Beyond
something you
time.
wanted to share? Go ahead, Bonnie. Bonnie wanted to share, I think, about the name Baba gave to her.
Oh, no, I was just sharing it with you privately because of what, hi, everyone. Hey, everyone.
Hi, Bonnie.
So
Bonnie.
wonderful to see you all. It's a pleasure.
Oh,
Yeah, you know, he gave me, I had such a back and forth with him about this. I didn't really want a name. And then he said, you Matingi. And I said, what? And he said, Matingi, Matingi. And he kept saying that. And first I didn't like it because I had Ma and I was only 23 years old. And I was like, I'm a kid, I'm young, right? But then he made this whole, he goes, and he kept going like, and like to me, to my nose and everything. And he kept doing that to say, and then someone there said, Bumblebee. And he said, and so for the longest time, I thought my name, Matingi, meant Bumblebee, which was so good because then I think I'm trying to think whether it was Om Shanti was there and she says, oh, it's a cat, you know, Bumblebee is good. It's a pollinator and a catalyst, and that's a good thing. And I said, okay, good. All right, I will take that. And then it was so funny because only recently did I look it up and I'm like, it's one of Durga's name. It's a Durga. It's like this ferocious tantric goddess, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And all this time I thought it was a bumblebee, you know, it was a catalyst. And so it was kind of funny for me, but it was a whole Leela, of course.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Well, and it's also, once again, a perfect segue, because next week we're going to go back to our 10 o'clock in the morning here. So sorry, Australia, set your alarm clocks. But Bonnie's going to be one of our folks to share her many months of stories with Babaji. So we look forward to that, Bonnie. And we believe Motu or Mindia, or maybe both, will be on with her. So it's going to be another lovely satsang, but we will move back to the morning time. But it's been registered that we will make sure we have Thailand and Australia times relatively frequently. So thank you. Thanks, Bonnie, for that.
New Zealand time also.
And New Zealand, thank you.
My name, Muniraji government, my name is Mohan.
Mohan?
It's also the name for Krishna, yes.
Nice.
I don't know how to change it in my profile. That's my name.
Nice.
Beautiful.
I have to go, sorry. I have something to do. But thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Bye, Mohan.
Mohan, great.
Ciao,
to-
Mohan.
New Zealand.
Baba
ki
ki
jai.
jai.
So we're a little bit on names. Shiraman, how'd you get your name?
Well, when I first met Babaji, he called me up after in the evening, and after spending that day with him, and he asked me what my name was, and I said, I don't know. And it wasn't just saying I don't know, like, you know, being clever. At that moment, I just literally did not know. And so then he gave me the name Hirilal, and I went and sat down, and then he called me up a little while later and he said, what is your name? And first he gave me a name first, and I couldn't keep it in my mind. And so then he called me up again and said, what is your name? And then he gave me that name again. And I went and sat down, and he called, and because I said I didn't know again. And then he called me up the third time and said, what is your name? And I said, I don't know. And then he gave me the name Hirilal. And so then we were into Mela for a few days, and before leaving, he told me to come to Harricon, and I had left all my climbing. I was going to do some climbing, and I left my climbing gear in Varanasi, and And so I was just willing to leave it, but he said, no, just go get it, don't be silly, kind of thing. And so just before I left, when he parted, he tapped me on the chest. And when he tapped me on the chest, then all of a sudden I remembered everything. Like I remembered the first name that he'd given me, which I've never told anyone, and except for you. And Claire, you should get in here too. And so as I went on, that name just unfolded in me, and I remembered lifetimes with Babaji. And for 3 days, I was just in this total bliss state of everything being just incredibly synchronistic and all unfolding in the travels and all kinds of stories. But what was really apparent is that, we've talked today about Babaji knowing the past and the present and the future. But I think, to me, it seems that it's all the same for Babaji. There's no past, no present, no future. It just is. He just always is. And so for me, that was how I got my name. And then later in Harakan, he changed Hira Lal to Hiraman. Whole different story. But really, I know my real name is the one I'm waiting for him to ask me next time. And I remember. So that's that.
What does Hiraman mean?
Diamond heart.
Nice.
And the
Hira is diamond in Hindi and man is heart.
Yeah.
Hira man, diamond heart. Yes.
Wow.
And man is not just the beating heart, but it's the center of consciousness heart. It's the heart of it. So
Yeah. Man is basically, man in Hindi can mean your mind, soul, everything non-physical. Everything that is non-physical can be called man. And yes, Hira is diamond and man is the non-physical part.
Babaji said,
Ramloti, just a question for you. What does Loti mean? Ram is Ram, and I heard in the first satsang in Guru Purnima, Ram Loti and Ram Lota. Lota in Hindi means a tumbler. So is it that tumbler and
Yeah, same.
maybe
Just the thumb.
Okay.
I think first he actually said Ramlota, and I said Ramlota
Okay.
to him, and then he said, no, Ramloti. So I think it's just the feminine of a lota.
Okay.
Somebody-
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Somebody was about to speak. Was that you, Raghu?
No.
wake up, Raghu.
I don't know. Should I talk about my name also?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Babaji called me the first 2 months or something that I was there. He called me shopper because I was running the shop. But there was also the period that I was not very trustworthy, and I was very slowly with my heels in the sand walking into the situation there. I was still checking it all out, but during these 2 months that started to change slowly, and I was listening to what people were telling, but I was definitely not immediately accepting everything I was hearing. And it took me about but it was slowly coming. And then one day I was already, from the moment that I woke up, it was like feeling in bliss, and I was flying down the stairs to take my bath in the river and the cosmos. I had a really fantastic time. And somewhere in the morning, I'm standing in the shop, and I had the shop was already there before and it had a picture of Shiva, one of those 5-10 rupee pictures on the wall, and also another one over there of Guru Nanak. They were already there, but on that moment, that all of a sudden I saw, it looked like that Shiva was really looking at me, but really looking, and I was really struck from there was somebody in that 10 rupee picture was really looking at me. I thought, wow, that's amazing. I never noticed that so much. And then somehow I looked at the other one. There was Guru Nanak, who usually is one of those pictures where he's almost looking like through his third eye, a little bit. But on that moment, also that picture was really looking at me, and I was really startled from, look at these, what are they looking at, and why? How strange that I've never noticed that. And that I felt something in my whole system, but I wasn't really aware of that. And I just turned around, and there was a picture of Babaji next to my bed there. And again, it was really looking at me. And on that moment, I thought, something started to happen inside of me from, wow, this is amazing. Why are these pictures all looking at me? I said, that must be Babaji. And then stories of which I heard from other people from, he is everywhere, and he can be in all the material world, he can manifest. And I thought from, oh, this is Babaji. Now finally something starts to happen to me in a more profound way. And then while I was standing there, I realized it's not in these pictures, it's in me. He is in me, and it is reflecting in these. And I still vaguely remember standing there in the middle of the shop, like hit by a frying pan or a deer in the headlights, like this. And it was an incredible feeling. And then I thought from, wow, now I have to do something. Now I understand, or I feel better what it's about. And I closed the shop and I went looking for Babaji, who was in the monsoon. He was sitting on that swinging chair. And there were some people there. And I walked in all from, wow, now I understand who you are, or whatever it was. But I came with those feelings. And I made from my heart, really, for the first time. I already made pranam in the last month, but it was often still from looking at him from, but not really from my heart fully. And on that moment, it was a full pranam. But he didn't look at me at all while I came down and was looking. He was just talking with these people. And I made this pranam, and I said, now I understand, and I humbly at your feet. And when I looked up, he was already bending down, looking over at me, and he said, "No, your name Raghuvir, your name Raghuvir Charan," at the feet of Lord Ram. So that took a couple of months before that really happened. And then a few months later, again, he added a Indian family name to it. Why, actually, I don't know. He never explained it. He just told somebody to make an embroidery on my shirt, and on his shirt, actually, which he gave to me. But yeah, that's how I got my name. And of course, you can make many thoughts about it, but I'm trying to stay away from it. But I thought, because it's Raghuvir Sharan, and I know that he was always calling me Raghu or Raghuvir, but 2 years later or something, when we were somewhere, he was calling out, Raghuvir, Raghuvir Singh. And I was standing right next to him, and I said, "I'm here, Baba." He said, "No, you Raghuvir Sharan, I'm looking for Raghuvir Singh." So I thought it all didn't matter, but apparently it's all, it has some meaning, but it definitely goes beyond me. There was no explanations, or as Babaji never explained himself. Nice to meet you, Raghuvir Charan Chowdhury.
Raghu, I have a question for you. In your book, or maybe at Satsang, I don't remember, maybe both, you told this story about a time, I think you were on a little field trip with Babaji and a few people. And I got that it was toward evening time or something. And I think he took took you away with him, or you went to find where he was or something, and it was just you and he. And my memory, as you said, and he just looked at me and didn't say anything. And that you looked back, and that was not so easy to maintain. Do you recall this story, and can you tell me or us what was
Well, we
your
were on this very unusual trip, and it was just also without planning. He said one day, we're going, take your things. And but I don't know, there were maybe 20, 25 people. And he took the cook and Jamal with him. And for the rest, there were, I don't recall, I don't think there were any Indian people. And there were some Westerners, but there was no Loknath, or there was no Pujari, there was no Karku, there was nobody or I don't know, there were some other people there but nobody from the old crew somehow. And we were sitting there in the middle of nature. We were going to sleep right there on the mountain slope in the grass. And but there was a little hut, and there from a villager there were some 2 or 3 villagers from that area. And Babaji went inside, and with Lahiro and Jamal, they made something to eat. And I just went there and sat outside, and I thought, maybe I can be useful for something. But and when he came out, I took a lota of water, to wash his hands, and he washed his hands after food. That was already dark, and then he took me by my arm, and he walked into the dark. We didn't have a torch or anything. It was away from where the people were sitting, which was open, but it was in the middle of the woods, maybe only 20 or 30 meters away from everything. And I thought, where are we going? What are we doing? I thought maybe he's going to have a wee, but then he sat down and he pulled me down also. And we were sitting there in the dark, and you could see the people over there sitting, and the hut was over there, and he was looking at me, and I was thinking all the time, what should I do, or what are we going to do, or what happens? And I was very busy. I couldn't just sit and be there. And he looked at me all the time. I don't know how to describe it otherwise than a lover looks at his beloved. But I was totally startled from thinking I needed to do things or whatever. And he was just looking at me, and I couldn't just relax in the moment and love him back. For a long time, I thought that I did something wrong, but this is what it was. But it was because it was not 30 seconds, it was several minutes. And maybe it was 10 minutes. I don't really recall, because everything somehow stopped, but it was very difficult for me to just be in that moment. And it was, I never have been able to give it any particular significance or something. But now I'm telling you about it, I can still feel emotion coming up. That it was somehow very beautiful, and probably beyond mind and concept. It was just pure love, which I couldn't just wholeheartedly let flow in on that moment or something. I don't know. Yeah. And then he stood up and he pulled me up, and we went back to where everybody was, and everything continued as before. Some bhajans. It was really, that trip was so inconspicuous. There was no puja going on. We did a few bhajans, but it was also just dad with the kids on camping. We didn't even have camping stuff, but it was just, we were sitting on the mountain slope, and it was just sitting and talking and having darshan, which was even in 1982, in that period, there was not always a beautiful harmonium going and people inspired in bhajans. Many people had no idea how to sing, and there were very few who actually knew some bhajans. So it was often also just sitting there, and people were sitting and having darshan, looking at Babaji. And it was also on that field trip, there was just being. And it was just being around him was, of course, so extremely satisfying. Yeah.
Yeah, Raghu, beautiful, beautiful story. What comes to my heart is a little moment I had with Babaji I want to share. When I was the pujari in the Hirakan in the temple, and I was at one point sitting in this little pujari kutir with the little fireplace in the middle close to the kitchen around the corner. And I was preparing the butties, put the wicks in the arti lamp, and I had to make the ghee warm in that fire and prepare the arti lamp. And then Babaji just quietly walked in that room and came sit next to me while I was doing the little job. But it was silent, but such an intimate feeling of I don't know, a vibration was so strong, just me quietly doing the job and Babaji in a very relaxed way, just sitting next to me. And then when I was almost finished with the last wick, he looked at me and he said, later, after work, you will sit at fire. Such a timeless remark, which only happened maybe 10 years later when I would be sitting doing a fire ritual. I realized, wow, he told me this 10 years ago. That kind of moments that show that Babaji looked beyond time, forward, backward. He knew our karmas. He knew where we are beyond our name and form, lifetimes in the past, probably in the future. That kind of realization of in such an intimate moment, that was like I share it as an intimate moment without many words with Baba. And same your story with just looking in the eyes. We realize divine being beyond name, form, time. What are we trying to speak about here?
I often remember this story, Raghu, and I think about that moment that you shared before.
One day in the monsoon, it wasn't possible to do any karma yoga, any work. So I'm like, well, what do you do? I'll get my mala and I sit in the kirtan hall with my back against the wall and just sit quietly and do jap, where I could see across and see the murti. And inside, my thoughts stopped. And inside, it was like inside my body was gray, like just a gray day, just that light when it's totally cloudy. Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. And then suddenly it was like the sunshine came out inside my body. My whole body was filled with sunshine. And I was like, whoa. And I opened my eyes and there was Baba standing right in front of me, looking down. He just snuck in. I didn't hear him. And he had the biggest smile on his face. It was just, I felt like a child. No, it's like here's Papa looking down at me with a big smile, filling me with sunshine.
Thank you. It's a beautiful place to perhaps end. It's been a couple of hours.
This is Rita. I'm on the phone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Rita.
I just want to say, you know, like when I go to Heracon, I'm someone that you wouldn't really notice. And, you know, I never met Babaji, but these things that you're talking about are treasures. And I never really get to speak with like Pajari or Raghuvir, you know, because I don't know, it just, the way it is at Heracon, I'm usually, someone's like, oh, were you there? I didn't see you. But it's such a gift to hear your stories and kind of, you know, get to know you a little, you know, every week hearing these. It's, you know, you are elder brothers and sisters who were with Baba, who, you know, hold that light, that and those stories of Baba, that it's just a treasure. And I feel very honored, and that's all.
It's a treasure for us, Rita, for you to share this time with us. And we enjoy being with you as much as you enjoy being here.
Yeah, no, that same light that you feel that we are carrying is also in your heart.
Yeah. And I know for a fact, because I think you're the Rita that sent me a beautiful card one time after I sent the malas to Heracon. And I've thought about you many times since then.
So I just thank you, everyone. You don't know what you're giving us. You don't realize, because, you know, in Heracon, when you go, there's like a zillion people and you all know each other. And if you know, I don't know you guys, so I never hear these beautiful stories. So what you're sharing is so wonderful for us, you know, that weren't with Baba and, you know, don't really know everyone. So it's a treasure.
But we know, Rita, that as all devotees, Babaji loves everybody the same. He doesn't, that you're more precious than the other one. It's really his love.
Yeah.
Well said, Pujari.
And Rita, you're a treasure because you live here in Crestone, and every time you come up to the ashram, I get so much joy. We all do. We appreciate you so much and your light, and Rita and I giggle all the time. We're just silly ladies together, and it's a treasure to have you. And I'm glad you're on all these satsangs, so thank you.
And I remember, Rita, one of the very, very special darshans you and I had together at Babaji, driving from Crestone to Santa Fe. That I cherish that, and I think of it, and I think of you, and that very sacred, very beautiful, precious drive where we had Babaji's darshan. I know you remember. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's not really about me. Thank you, everyone. What I just wanted to share was all your treasures, and just it's just thank you. And I know I speak for everyone on this call, I'm sure. Just thank you for sharing, and I can't explain how, you know, grateful we are. So Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you.
We started 2 hours ago with this satsang talking about non-separation, and Rita, it doesn't matter whether someone first came into contact with Baba 100 lifetimes ago or yesterday. There's no greater, no lesser, no more, no lesser. Only brothers and sisters unified in love.
Thank you all
Mhm.
so much. And thank you for sharing your beautiful birthday with us.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm touched beyond words, beyond words. Thank you. It's to be with you all this morning. It's winning the spiritual lottery. Thank you.
We are touched beyond birthday cake, Nanwa.
Our greatest strength together is the love that we have been given and that we share. You know, that's all the other stuff is just stuff, but love is what it's all about.
I'm going to go and put some stuffed birthday cake in my mouth.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Love everybody.
And Raghuvir, a quick question. Would you share the name of your book?
Sorry? Is
The
that
name
you,
of your
Rajat?
book? Did you write a book,
Raghuvir.
Raghuvir?
Yes. Yes, I did write a book.
And what's the name of the book?
Autobiography of a Bogey.
Okay. Well, I'll try to find on Amazon.
Yeah, because we
Is
don't
that you?
have any at the
Rajat, is that you talking?
Oh,
Avani.
Avnish.
Avanish.
Avnish.
Avanish Gupta. He lives in Colorado.
This book is not available on Amazon yet.
Oh.
I don't know if it is still available in, where are you?
I'm in Colorado.
Oh, well, I don't know if it's available with Ramloti. It's,
On right now. No, we don't have.
Okay.
Anyway, it is nearing the end, I believe, and I am rewriting it with a few more stories to be more easy accessible for non-devotees, and I hope then to publish it through other channels that it will it's properly edited and then with some new stories in it also. So then it will, I hope that will all happen this year, and that by next year maybe something will reach a bigger market, because I hear that it is very well appreciated by a lot of people. So I hope to bring out the message that people can find their own Babaji.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you all. I look forward to being with you all next week, if you're able. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. You don't really. Thank you, Raghu.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Pleasure
Babaji.
to meet you all.
Keep
Thank you.
And Pujari, thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Huh?